And of course, with ever-increasing energy prices, it seems that Labour have come up with an idea. A very bad idea, because it appears that energy price rises aren't enough for them. No, in the whole drive to net zero, it could lead to something much, much worse if this article's anything to go by, because it says that Ed Miliband's net zero plan could lead to blackouts across Britain, which, if anything, has taken us back to the 1970s, isn't it? Well, thank you very much, Labour. Is there anything else that you want to inflict on us? I mean, let's take a look at the list so far, shall we? Taking away OAP's winter fuel allowance, increasing employer national insurance, which will affect ordinary everyday people by pushing up the prices of things in the shops, no doubt. And now this, and not forgetting a load of other things that they've announced recently, and more than likely will announce in the future. It's just absolutely stupid in my opinion, especially when, if you think about it, President Trump is going to drill, baby, drill, remember. You'd like to think that might, if anything, switch on a few Labour brain cells and either A, abandon net zero, or at least put it on the back burner, because it isn't exactly doing us much favours, is it? Especially in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And it will just seem even more apparent, won't it, when America's energy prices will more than likely fall after Donald Trump's announcement. So why are they saying it's going to cause blackouts? I mean, could it possibly be some sort of tinfoil hat nonsense? Well, unfortunately it appears it isn't, because it says here that the UK came closer to losing power earlier this month than it has done at any point over the last 15 years, according to an energy analysis. And Ed Miliband's net zero plans could make things even worse. And remember, this net zero crap isn't exactly cheap, and I don't really think net zero is even possible, is it? Because air doesn't exactly stay in the same place, does it? It moves. So our net zero air will surely be pushing overseas to other countries, and we'll be getting their dirty air, as what Ed Miliband probably thinks it is, and therefore we'll have to produce even more net zero in their eyes, surely. And just think about it, how much is all this going to cost, especially when they keep banging on about this stupid black hole, this £22 billion black hole, although the only black hole I can think of here at the moment is in Ed Miliband and Keir Starmer's heads. Because whilst there are people, in fact I'm pretty sure everyone won't mind doing something for the planet if it doesn't affect us. Unfortunately though, not only will this affect our wallets presumably, but also if it causes us blackouts, it's going to affect us a lot more, especially nowadays when everything is basically over the internet, and not forgetting all those EVs that they all want us to have. So losing power now is going to affect us a lot more surely than what it would have done in the 1970s, eh? And just listen to this. In early January, demand for power came close to exceeding supply, causing the National Energy System Operator, NESO, to issue an alert warning of a potential shortfall in power. And now there's fears that Energy Secretary Ed Miliband's plans to close the traditional coal-fired and nuclear power stations as part of his whole net zero drive or agenda could leave the UK susceptible to further blackout risks in the future. And remember, think about it, this should more than likely is with those coal power stations and nuclear ones doing their thing and producing power presumably, so to cut them off completely, isn't that just going to make blackouts happen pretty much a lot of the time? Especially when, of course, the sun does not have his hat on and therefore the solar can't get power. Although admittedly, who knows, I guess they might have some sort of, AA battery power pack backup or something like that for those, shall we say, cloudier days, eh? And Miliband and Nessa have both downplayed the gravity of the close shave, but Karen Porter, their energy analysis and expert on grid dynamics, believes that the country came close to blackout. So whose side shall we take here? An energy analysis expert or Ed Sandwich Miliband? Don't all answer at once. She said, though, this expert, that on January the 8th was the tightest day for energy supplies over the last 15 years. Market data indicates that we came within the loss of one power station of demand control or even blackouts, she says. I think, and yeah, of course I don't know about you, but I've got a feeling that if we do get a lot of blackouts, this government might suddenly have, shall we say, a belly dance and U-turn on the matter, and strangely might go back to Donald Trump's way of thinking until all the infrastructure is what they're seeing it as is in place, and then perhaps switch us over. Or at least you'd like to think that's what they'd do. More than likely, I'm guessing, they'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing it until, who knows, the whole thing might collapse. She says, unfortunately, Nesso continues to refuse to be transparent about which generating assets or batteries were available to run that day to provide spare margin and reserves. And this is disappointing and undermines the confidence, she says, in their assertions, which are not supported by underlying market data. And that's the thing. I mean, the government, and if I remember rightly, told us to follow the science. Can't you remember that a few years ago? And admittedly, yes, Labour weren't in government, but I'm pretty sure that they wanted us to follow the science. In fact, that was their excuse for a circuit breaker lockdown. I mean, remember that, eh? So why aren't they listening to the science now? I'm guessing it's because it doesn't quite fit with what they want to do or their whole net zero agenda. As well as, remember, in the winter we use a lot more power, presumably, more than what we do in the summer because it's colder, isn't it? And therefore, there'll be many households out there which have to put on the heating. In fact, pretty much nearly all of them, no doubt. The worrying thing is this, though. But falling wind speeds, outages and 3 interconnectors at some gas-powered stations meant generating capacity was down, heightening the risk that the demand could outstrip supply. And the looming potential, it says here, for a blackout forced NESO to fund turning on the extra generators to ensure the UK's ability to maintain power at the expense of some of the highest prices of power ever seen, adding an estimated £17 million onto British energy bills. And I think that might be what might happen in the future. They might admittedly close these power stations down, although they might switch them back on as some sort of emergency measure, and therefore doing so will more than likely push up the price for everyone else, especially, of course, if it happens on a regular basis, presumably. It even says here that last year the UK shut down its last remaining coal-fired power station, which if it had been in operation on January the 8th, would have prevented, remember that word, prevented, even a hint on energy shortage. So there wouldn't have been a problem at all. We wouldn't have even come close, presumably. But no, they're going close. And therefore, presumably they're going to leave us susceptible to all these blackouts or whatever else, or higher prices in the future. Well, thank you very much, and F you very much, government. It looks though that he did get in a bit of trouble about all this, because it says that Miliband was grilled on a near miss by a select committee where he rejected the notion that Britain came close to being plunged into darkness. Well, why is that then? Well, let's just see what he said. He said there'd been quite a lot of nonsense talked about this. Well, I don't think an energy analysis expert is going to talk nonsense, are they, Ed? I think if anyone's going to talk nonsense, it would be an MP, presumably, compared to them. NESO has said that at no point energy supplies were less than anticipated demand. That the incident now highlighted the UK's susceptibility to losing power as Britain transitions to net zero. And of course, it comes as no surprise that Richard Tice, Reform's energy spokesperson, disagrees with Ed Miliband, warning that the UK's energy system is becoming increasingly precious, both in terms of price and security of supply. He said, "We are not being told the truth. Our energy is becoming more expensive and less secure. The drive to net zero is dramatically increasing prices due to the need to have backup gas and nuclear supply for when renewables are not generating enough electricity," reports the Telegraph. And he also added, this also increased the risks of rationing and even blackouts at times of low wind, as which we saw last week. And I hope I'm wrong, but it does make me think that soon, unless something is done, we are going to feel the risk of this more and more often, and the government should at least prepare for that.